it's the sound of another malarkey hour coming right at ya. This is your host, Matt. And sitting across from me on the computer screen, again, is my co-host, Mr. John. How's it going, sir?
Do you really want to know?
Actually, I do want to know, John. How's it going? Like, I want to know. Just bare your soul tonight with us.
Right. You can do the telemedicine therapy.
Have you done that at telemedicine? I've gotten that as an option on my health coverage before, but I never used it.
Not for psychiatry. I've done it for another health related matter that actually proved to be fruitless.
That fungus on your head?
Yeah, actually they wrote me a prescription for an antibiotic, even though they're just fucking guessing.
Yeah. Let's see if this works. No. Well, I'm glad you're doing okay, John. So let's start this week. You know what? This week we're gonna do something we haven't done in a while. A segment. I think me and you off the air were talking about this, and I think I mentioned, we'll do another one in a few weeks. And now it's been a few weeks, and here we are. And I want to do a segment that I think we've only done like once or twice since I introduced it. And the name of the segment is Paranormal Happenings. I think the last few times we did do it, it was on like ghost stories, which, obviously that is paranormal. But I wanted to open it up a little bit because, yes, granted, paranormal, you think of ghosts, but I did want to include not just ghost stories in this segment, but other weird shit, right? We as human beings tend to experience weird stuff that we can't explain. So, usually we attribute it to something beyond our understanding. So, I thought we would go into a subject that I know you like, I like, and it's a subject. The subject in question is UFOs, John. I wanted to do a UFO story for this week's segment. And
is it your story?
My story. So I don't know if I told you this, but about like 3 months ago. No, I wanted to talk about another paranormal, a more famous story that did not happen to me, but happened to another person that's been more obviously.
Just call him Matt.
But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about just the history of UFO sightings. It's interesting when you start looking. I started looking back at some of the more famous ones throughout the last I would say the last 100 years or so, and it is interesting how we did sort of see a uptick in reportings post World War II. And maybe that's not that much of a coincidence. Obviously, we didn't have flying objects.
Video cameras?
Yeah, flying objects until, around the World War. Do we have planes in World War One? We did, right? By then, we already had planes. But
yes.
But it was really World War II where we really utilized, fighting in the air. If I'm remembering my history class correct.
Yeah. Yes. Both sides.
Yeah, so it is. I guess that makes sense why we would.
Japanese were very, very dedicated in that
regard. Yeah, we were too. Yeah, that's just for another podcast, John. That's when we do our Pearl Harbor podcast in a few weeks.
They would give them meth.
The Japanese pilots?
Yeah, the kamikaze pilot.
That sounds like something they would do, right? Yeah.
I don't know. I've heard that a few times.
Yeah. But no, maybe that's when you hear about UFOs and you hear about all these weird, like, hey, they had like these weird flying patterns. Maybe it's just like Japanese fighter pilots high on some type of speed like drug, right? This whole time.
Or the people they interview about UFOs
are high on some speed like drug, yeah. No, but we did see sort of an uptick post World War II on UFO sightings, and obviously it might be contributed, hand in hand with, hey, we did have planes after that time period, but just throughout history, I'm sure you've heard about a lot of these, John. There's one called the Maury Island incident in 1947. You had the one of the most famous ones, the Roswell UFO crash of 1947. You had let's see, just going down, the Lubbock Lights in 1951. Go ahead.
At what point were these on? A lot of these are like eyewitness, right? At what point were they videoed? Were a lot of these on?
I think early on, obviously, it's more pictures, and but then you start seeing, obviously, with the advent of the Super 8 camera. I think I want to say the late 60s, you start seeing a little bit more of video footage. But prior to that, yeah, you probably would see just grainy, very grainy photographs. But yeah, we probably in the late 60s, early 70s. So that's when people started being able to buy home cameras or home video cameras. But yeah, I mean, you have a bunch of famous even to a point where did you know this? I didn't know this until I was researching a little bit, that even our former president Jimmy Carter had a UFO incident attributed to him.
I read something about that or heard it, but I remember he said something about UFOs.
Yeah, happened in 1969 while he was governor of Georgia. So yeah, I mean, everybody's seen a UFO apparently. So it is.
Sorry, I got a cough drop if you can hear it. I'm trying to keep it quiet.
Okay. But I want to narrow in on one in particular. Have you ever heard of something called the Allagash Abductions?
Nope.
Okay, so let's talk about it, John. The Allagash Abductions. But before we get into it, the actual story, let me retell a story that a man named Jack Wiener told his wife. So this was about 1988, and like I mentioned, this man named Jack Wiener, he started having these recurring nightmares, and he told his wife Mary. This is how he described it, and every time he would have this nightmare, it was pretty similar to this. This is his own words. He said, "I was starting to have nightmares, really terrible nightmares that I could not explain. I found myself in a very brightly lit room. I had no idea where I was or why I was there. To my left, I could see my brother Jim, Chuck Rack, and Charles Foltz. Now, these other two guys, they were this guy, he was in art school, so back in the 70s, and the other two guys were classmates of his in this art college that he was going to. So he said he would see these three other guys, one being his twin brother Jim, and the other two being his classmates, sitting on some type of bench, and they were all naked. I was wondering why they weren't helping me, because I felt like I was in danger. And while I'm trying to figure this out, I noticed this figure or a dark shadowy type figure emerging from this light. So it's almost like this figure was backlit, right? So he couldn't really see the features. This bright light in front of me. I would wake up sweating and breathing heavily, and just in a state of terror and shock. So he mentioned he would go on, like, this is a dream he would have consistently, and then every time he would have it, he would spend several days just thinking about it, and it would just eat up his days for at least 4 or 5 days after he had this nightmare, every time just contemplating it, and that's all he could think about. So eventually he I guess he
had recurring nightmares.
Do I have recurring nightmares?
Or even weird dreams that recur?
One that I have, and I think this is a common one. I've read other people talk about it, and I think maybe you even mentioned it to me. I don't know if I ever told you this, but I've had the people call them. I forget what they call them. So usually when I have this is if I sleep on my back, and for whatever reason, this is the only thing I could connect it to. The only constant is if I had eaten cheese late at night. So if I eaten cheese late at night and I slept on my back, I have this dream of like this dark figure coming over me, and I'm awake, but I can't move, and he's holding me down, and I'm almost like in a state of paralysis, and a lot of people have this type of dream. But I can see everything around me, like the room looks exactly the way it looks if I was awake, but I can't move. And all of a sudden, I think I'm awake, and then all of a sudden, I wake myself up, and I realize I was just dreaming. But it feels like I am awake, but I just can't move, and there's this dark figure hovered over me. I can't see any features holding me down. So I've had that, I would say, at least 4 or 5 times.
Well, fuck you, because I've had sleep paralysis since middle school.
Yeah. I think that's a recurring thing in sleep paralysis.
It's still terrifying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I mean, other than that one,
I literally have it. I don't think I've like every few months since middle school, probably.
When's the last time you had it?
Probably about less than maybe like 2 months ago or less.
Is it always just as terrifying as the first time?
Kind of.
Yeah. Even though do you ever sort of by now figure, hey, I'm dreaming, or is it still just scary because you can't move?
You never get used to it.
Okay.
It's weird, but I mean, it's 100% like if the TV was on, I think I told you this, I could hear the TV. Like I could even tell you what the fuck they were saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like on the TV. Like I could sometimes, maybe I could get an eyelid almost open.
Right.
Maybe, but I can't.
Do you
move a finger.
But do you see anything other than just like the room around you?
No, I've heard that dark figure thing from people.
I
don't really get that.
Okay.
I have had eyes open and not being able to move, but usually usually all I can do is hear.
How long does it usually last though? Like that feeling?
It feels like forever, so it's tough to say.
Okay.
But I would say usually minutes, but probably it's so hard because when every second's terrifying, time goes by slow.
Yeah.
So like it could be 10 minutes and it could feel like an hour. So I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's
that's why I actually related to that. What was that Haunting of Hill House episode?
Oh yeah, because she has sleep paralysis, right?
And then that guy got like murdered in front of her.
Yeah, she couldn't do anything about it.
And she couldn't move. And I was like, oh no. I was like,
your worst nightmare come to life.
Yeah, that was the episode that creeped me out the most because I was like,
no, sleep paralysis is scary. I mean, it does play on a lot of people's, basic fears of just human beings, right? Like not being able to move, not having any control over anything, and you're bearing witness to, this thing that you have no control over.
How I would describe it. Imagine waking up blindfolded, duct taped, and tied up, and you can't do anything, and like you're stuck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like that's the best way to describe it for me.
Yeah. No, it's a big control thing, right? Not being able to do anything about it. That's scary.
And then you're panicking with your breathing. So if you have like your face under a blanket or in a pillow, it's even worse than if you're on your back.
Yeah. No, and I think just the fact that it's something that happens all the time. It would have been one thing if you had it once or twice, but the fact that it comes over and over, I'm sure that's not fun. Especially when you're just beginning, you're like, oh shit, I know how this is gonna end. That's just scary. But no, I mean, so this guy Jack, he was having something, it might have been sleep paralysis, but I'm pretty sure that's still a pretty creepy dream to have where he mentioned feeling a sense of danger.
Let's go back to something for a second. Why does this happen when you eat cheese?
I don't know. That is the only I was trying to find like what is the constant, and that's the closest thing I could find. If I ate cheese late in the night and I slept on my back, that was the only like two like. But
I mean, you found that this is a thing that people share.
No, this is a thing that I this is something that prompts me to have the night.
You're part of some weird online community that
no.
It happens to
I
people.
should, right? I should put that out there to see if anybody else has it. I'm sure it's not the cheese itself. I'm sure it's just for the reason. Maybe it might be any dairy product. I don't know. But that's the one connection I usually could find, right? Those two things: is eating cheese and sleeping on my back. But I haven't had it in a while. Actually, I was having it a lot in the house I used to live in, and then this house that I've lived in for the last 5 years or so. I think I've had it maybe twice since I lived here, but I usually don't really. And I sleep on my side for the most part, so maybe that's what helps too. But I think I used to sleep on my back a lot more often before.
Yeah. And then when you do, I know we're getting off topic, but when you do wake up, you're like, it's one of those things too where your brain is also trying to process where are you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean before you wake up too.
Yeah.
And then when you wake up, you're relieved and everything, like assuming you're in a familiar place. But I've had it happen actually a couple of times out of town in like a hotel.
And it fucks with your head.
And it totally fucked with your head for like 5 minutes because you're still recovering from the whole thing. And then you're like, "Where the fuck am I?" And you're like, you remember you're like out of town in a hotel.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't recognize anything around me.
You're like, did I get kidnapped? I just didn't realize it. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, the scariest thing is I would have this where I would wake up, and if I started drifting back to sleep too quickly, I would jump right back into the nightmare again. So literally, I would I would have it where I would wake up when I start like trying to scream myself to wake up. So like this figure would be holding me down. I would wake up, and as soon as I wake up, he's not there anymore. This figure's not there anymore. But then if I would try to go back to sleep too quickly, I would jump right into it and he's holding me down again. You're like, shit. Let me try to wake up again. So like every once in a while, if I were to wake up, I would try to at least 10-15 seconds to get up a little bit and okay. And then just try to fall back to sleep. But the last few times it's happened, actually, I don't know, maybe I got even used to it a little bit. It hasn't really freaked me out as much. But I don't know.
It's still back the friend of ours, Marshall, was the one that he told me to, because he doesn't get it nearly as much as me, but he's gotten it a few times for I think a long time. Mm-hmm. He said to exhale as much as he can, and to hold the exhale, and that. But I'm like, dude, I'm not thinking rationally like when this is going on. Like, I don't know how you train yourself to do that shit.
He's like,
but it's funny. Like he's more freaked out about it than me. He's like, I don't want to talk about it. Every time we brought it up.
Yeah.
Because every time I talk about
it, I guess.
I'm still freaked out about it.
Yeah, it's sort of you don't want to get into that headspace any more than you have to. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Netflix made a whole thing where they reenacted people's sleep paralysis.
But it's hard to recreate that terror unless you've had it yourself.
Yeah, I didn't relate to most of it. Like the dark figure thing is in there too, but
yeah, that's a common thing.
One of the stories.
Yeah,
I don't really get the dark figure.
And I never knew about it until I started having them, and then I looked it up, and it's like, oh, it's a common thing amongst
I have had the open eyes though. That's weird.
Oh, your eyes open, yeah. No, yeah. But well, at least you don't have a your 3 of your friends sitting there naked looking at you. That's what
I'd probably prefer that. I mean, over
apparently
just in general.
Apparently Jack did too. And but it was interesting. So Jack was having this, going back to the story, Jack was having these dreams for a while, and he finally, I guess he mentioned to his twin brother Jim, and Jim confessed to him that he was having pretty much the exact same nightmare. Jim confessed there were always certain elements of the dream that were the same. Some type of creature being helpless, being violated was a feeling I often woke up with. So his twin brother Jim was having the same dream. So and every dream the twins, they were with those two friends that I mentioned that they had met in art school. So they wondered if these nightmares could be connected to a camping trip that all four had 12 years earlier in Maine, particularly Allagash, Maine. So that's where the Allagash Abduction name comes from. So apparently,
how old were they when they're having these dreams?
Probably in their 30s because so they mentioned they went on this camping trip 12 years prior in 1976, August 1976. They all four men spent 2 weeks in the Allagash wilderness. So apparently, there's like thousands of acres of wilderness up in like northern Maine. Actually, like right on the border of Maine and Canada. So they spent 2 weeks there, and apparently that's
like everything happens in Maine, right?
Yeah, it seems like. Well, is it all Stephen King's books set in like this fictional town in Maine?
That's where it comes from.
Yeah, but apparently, I guess they this is where I think the story gets a little freaky. So they have forgotten about not the trip itself, but they have forgotten what happened when they were up there. So I guess these dreams sort of prompted them to start remembering this camping trip that they all took 12 years before. So as they're remembering, they mentioned that they got up there the first night, it was fine, but they mentioned that on the second night that Jim, one of the twins, noticed a bright light in the sky, and he says it was just floating above the treetops, didn't seem to be moving in any direction. And I looked at it through the binoculars for maybe 15 seconds, 30 seconds, and it suddenly just winked from the outside edges inward. So he mentioned it's just like almost like how would you call it? Like you have a ball of light and it contracts on itself, right? Yeah. And he says, I mean, it literally just went. That's the. I saw the video of him talking. So I was like, he went like that, and it was gone. There was something about this thing that left me with an odd feeling that wasn't quite right, but I really didn't dwell on it. So that was the second night they were there. So they didn't think much of it, and then on the fourth day, they decided to try some night fishing. So they were camping off, I guess, the edge of this like this lake or something where their campsite was at. So it was nighttime, so that they wouldn't get lost because they were out in the middle of nowhere and there's like zero light. So they built this big bonfire at their campsite so that once they go out in the water, they have some almost like an anchor of light. They know, hey, once we're done, we need to go back towards there, that big source of light, because otherwise they would lose sight of I guess where their campsite was. So they mentioned they want to make sure, hey, this bonfire lasted while they're out in the water. So they said they built a huge bonfire. Probably on the edge of being too big, but they wanted to be conscious, obviously, not to set the whole forest on fire. But they said it was pretty big, and in fact, one of them mentioned it, for him. He goes, it probably would have lasted a good 4 hours. He goes, at minimum. That's how big this bonfire was. It easily could last 4 hours. So that's gonna come into play later on. So they build the fire and they go out on
those kids at A&M were like, we can beat that.
Yeah, it's too soon, John. So they go out in their canoe to go do some night fishing, and one of the classmates, Chuck Rack, he said once they were out in the middle of the lake in the water, that's when he realized that it felt like he said that he had this feeling of when you feel like somebody's looking at you. So he said, I had a feeling there was someone staring at me from behind. So I turned over my right shoulder and I saw this large round globe of light that looked exactly like that light we had seen 2 nights previously. And he said it had this rolling effect to it, like a little small sun, and that was very, very bright. He said, in fact, it lit up the treetops like it was daylight, but it was completely silent.
This is like not in the sky; it's like in the trees.
Well, like the sun. It's essentially it's lighting up. Okay. Yeah, it's lighting up, I guess, above the trees, like far away, behind them. So after looking at it for what seemed like several moments, we decided to signal this thing. So he mentioned, he goes, at one point he tells the guys, "Hey, what is that over there?" And almost by instinct, they didn't ask, well, where are you talking about? By instinct, they all turned around, even though he didn't say, "Oh, what's that behind us?" And that's when they saw the light. So that's when one of the guys, he picked up his flashlight and he did one of those sort of I guess Morse code SOS, where you sort of do a signal with your flashlight. And as soon as he did that, he got an instantaneous response. The light, he said, well, when the light started coming towards us, my curiosity was satisfied, and I just dropped the flashlight. So as soon as he did that, that ball of light started coming towards them. He said the only thought in my mind was to get to shore. I never looked back. So that's when the men started paddling back to shore, and then Jack Wiener, as he mentions, I remember looking over my shoulder, trying to keep an eye on this object as it was coming up behind us. It was getting very close. It was almost on top of us at this point, and I remember thinking we're not going to outrun this thing. So they said that after that, the next memory they had is that they were back on shore, and they even mentioned they were like almost positioned, almost like a portrait, like somebody's gonna take a picture of them. They were just standing, side by side next to each other. And Jim Winter mentions, because I remember thinking I could pick up a stone and bounce it off this thing's side. That's how close it was. And then all of a sudden, it just streaked away very, very fast. And within a few seconds, it was like a star, just another light in the sky. I remember stepping out of the canoe and going up to the campsite. And I remember there was no panic. People seemed to be very relaxed. So they don't remember anything, how they got to the shore. They should remember they were at the shore. After they started, rolling back to the shore, and this light was, advancing on, all of a sudden they should remember being on shore again. And this is where the...
that was the first time we took acid.
Yeah. Actually, that comes into play a little later. I'll get to that. So they one of the things that they noticed, and this is the reason I said take note of this, is when they got back, the fire was a little low. So remember they mentioned, hey, we built this big fire. It should last at least 4 hours. But they mentioned they weren't out in the lake for that long, because they saw the light as soon as they started paddling out to the middle of the water. So when they I guess regain consciousness, they're seeing this fire and it's almost out. And they said there's no way this huge bonfire should be this small. It should have burned for hours, and yet here it is, and it's just cold. So Jack Wiener recalls, the unusual thing is we didn't stay up for hours and discuss this thing, which is what you'd think 4 young guys on a camping trip would do, right? This weird fucking experience that they had where they don't remember anything, and it seemed like they lost hours of their life. They're not gonna discuss it. We just seemed very fatigued and wanted to go to bed.
It's like prison rape. It's like, we're not going to talk about that.
Yeah. So they said they all just felt tired. So the next morning we got up and got our camp together and paddled to the next campsite. And then they spent the next 10 days out there and nothing else. They didn't see the light anymore. Again in those 10 days that they were out there. So yeah, it happened. And I guess they never talked about it. So the years went by, but they did tell their friends and family about the sighting, but they said no one really believed them. They said they barely believed them themselves, but it came up again once they, once the twin brothers' nightmares started coming up. So I guess they started talking to their 2 friends, and that's when one of the brothers decided to contact UFO researcher Ray Fowler for help. So this
sounds credible.
Ray Fowler. That sounds like a credible name, Ray Fowler. Yeah. It almost sounds like what was the character's name in Michael Keaton's character's name in that Jackie Brown movie? Sounds almost like his name is Ray Nicolette. Never mind. Sounded very similar.
Yeah, Nicolette.
Yeah. So they contact this UFO researcher. Actually, he was renowned.
Think about it now. I'm like, Nicolette and Fowler. How do they sound similar?
I don't know. Raven. I just thought Raven Fowler. But the important part is he's a renowned UFO researcher, John. So that's important. He's renowned. Ray Fowler. And Ray Fowler suggests
that costs extra.
Yeah. Ray Fowler suggested that they all go under hypnosis. So he contacted this guy he knew.
He's just giving the upsells now.
So I guess he knew this guy. His name was Tony Costantino, and he did something called. Have you ever heard of regressive hypnosis?
No.
So apparently, this is type of hypnosis that some people believe in, some people don't. Where some people think, hey, everybody's had this past life, and they're trying to pull these memories that you think you may have, but you don't really think about. So he did this regressive hypnosis session on these 4 men.
You're pulling memories from your past life.
Yeah, almost from your past life, but I think in this case they're trying to pull these repressed memories, right? So obviously this. as they were explaining their story, the Ray Fowler, the UFO researcher, his conclusion is like, oh, these guys were abducted. They just don't realize it. So he mentioned he didn't say anything about that as they're telling him the story. So,
all right, let me take your some blood back to the lab. Just another fucking. That's on part of the package right there.
Yeah.
It's on this brochure right here.
Yeah, but he didn't want to tell him that. Oh, I guess that was his conclusion when he heard their story. So he figured, hey, these guys they repress these memories of being abducted. Obviously, it was terrifying enough for them they just forgot about it. So they went under hypnosis, and each man that they went under hypnosis, they went in separately, right? So they decided, hey, we're not going to tell each other what we saw, what we told until we come back together. So they did the hypnosis separately on each of these men. And actually, let me share my screen. I want to play you this clip. As actually excerpts from each of the men.
To make sure that it's not a fraud, basically.
Yeah, a little bit. I think the men themselves too, they wanted to sort of see, hey, what did we really see? So there's actually this some excerpts of some recordings of what they when they're talking under hypnosis. Let me play it. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
They don't know what to do. I think they think I'm going to come after them. I feel like I want to. I feel like I want to. The first one that comes near me, I'm going to throttle them. That's what I want to do, is throttle them. I don't like these things. I don't care where they come from. They shouldn't be doing this to people.
Jim's brother Jack found the faces terrifying.
They're right there. Their face is right in my face. I don't know why. I don't want to know. I don't want to know what they want. Oh, they're saying things. They're explaining things with their eyes. In my head, they're saying, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. We won't harm you. They say, do what we say. Just do what we say.
Charlie Foltz was the next to be examined.
I'm afraid that it's like a doctor's office. It's cold like a doctor's office is cold. They put the panel over your chest. They scrape your arms, your chest, your legs and thighs. We shouldn't be here. I just keep thinking I want to be back in the canoe.
Chuck Rack had a good view of what the aliens were doing to Charlie.
See some sort of device on him. They've got it looks like a silvery, it looks like it's got curves on it. It's almost like it sucks something. He's got his head tipped way back. It's almost like he's in pain. We're just there. We can't help him. We're just, all we can do is watch him.
I mean, the ominous music always helps too.
So that that was just some experts on from each man on what they remember and what they saw. Essentially, saw this weird scene with these alien beings doing these weird tests on each of them.
Yeah.
So
I wonder how controlled. I mean, you have to take. You kind of have to take their word for it, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's either all four of them. They obviously they have a lot more, of these tapings. So essentially, I guess they all essentially recall the same events. So they each took polygraph tests, and apparently all
two brothers and two friends.
Yeah, two twin brothers and two friends. They each took polygraph tests, and apparently they all passed. But like you mentioned, it's one of those you gotta take their word for it. I mean, who knows if they rehearsed this or not. And polygraph tests, they can be duped, right?
Yeah, I mean the odds of all four of them being able to dupe a polygraph test is a little bit.
Yeah, and obviously there's people out there who, skeptics who, they feel like these stories of alien abductions they wouldn't stand up to scrutiny. So one of them,
it is funny how I think I mentioned this before, how like these guys are wackos, right? Because they're just testimonies.
Mm-hmm.
I mean that's not a lot of people are gonna see it.
Yeah.
But like if this was like court, it's like, oh well, this is a testimony. This could put somebody in prison.
Yeah, and people have been put away with less of this, right?
Yeah, and people's memories are just not reliable.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's kind of like, usually that's what puts people away is like a eyewitness testimony in a courtroom. But when it comes to like science and shit, you're like, you need like concrete. Shit.
Yeah. It's like it's good enough to put people away for life, but it's not good enough for other things. Yeah.
They almost put Ralph Macchio away and my cousin Vinny. Because the old people couldn't see.
That old lady with their thick glasses, right?
Yeah.
Well, some people feel the same way. Some people, that's how they look at it, right? So one of them, this clinical psychologist, Dr. William Cohn, he mentions that images from popular culture or horror movies may have triggered inspiration for memories of alien abduction. So he talks about, he says, this movement is media driven. It's cyclical. People hear about good cases on TV. They think they may have had the same thing happen. It sort of feeds upon itself. And this other guy, Dr. John Mack, who's a psychiatrist and an author, he says, usually these are people who have no interest in abductions, have not read about it, are unfamiliar with the beings, and are shocked and astounded when they hear someone else had these experiences as well, or that there's material in the media about it. The investigators have a very clear-cut agenda about what they're looking for. So if you get somebody that's doing UFO abduction research, this is a person that has already decided that UFO abductions are real, that thousands of people are having them. They have a symptom list, and if you come in the door with those symptoms, then you must have been abducted. It really doesn't work like that. The person comes because they've heard that I'm open to listening to something which other therapists or other mental health professionals have not been able to listen to. This is not a club anyone wants to belong to.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be very carefully coordinated with 4 people.
With 4 people, yeah. So what's interesting is for a while, all 4 guys, they said, they never backed down from their claims. They said, this happened. If you believe it, that's all right. If you don't believe it, I don't care. So one of the guys was saying, I don't care because it did. So they've maintained it.
I mean, how much do you have? Like, I don't think I could convince 3 other people to even go along with this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not in my close circle of friends. Maybe if I put an ad out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't think they'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm just saying, it's...
Yeah. And there's
like you'd have to really want to crave that kind of attention or think, it's not the best money making scheme. I can't imagine there's a lot of profit in this.
Yeah, and what's interesting is, obviously they went out camping, and then they mentioned right after they didn't talk about it, and then it took them 12 years before they mentioned this trip again. So it's a long time between this thing happening between or happening to these four guys and them coming forward and starting talking about it, because they didn't come, like I mentioned, these guys didn't start having these nightmares until 1988, 12 years after. And then when they started going on these talk show circuits, this was like the early 90s. So that's a long time for them to wait to say, hey, let's sit on this for a decade plus, and then let's try to make money off of it. I don't know, it's such a weird, it's a long time,
Yeah.
But what's interesting,
unless it's got right. They're doing exactly what I said. It's like they couldn't lie because there's four of them. They're like, hey, they wouldn't think you're lying because there's four of them.
Yeah, right, yeah. She's going against everything.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. Still, it's interesting, I guess.
Yeah. But I mentioned that for the longest time, all four of them, they didn't back down from their claim until not too long ago. Actually, one of them, about 4 or 5 years ago, no, not one of the brothers, actually one of the friends, Chuck Rack, he came forward and he says that it didn't happen, that the abduction didn't happen. He talks about, yes, they did see the light. They saw this weird light, but that's all that they saw. That he doesn't remember, any of the abduction happening. That he's just, that they made it up to make money from it. Apparently, he mentions that. Let me read this from. They did an interview with him.
Was he in the hypnosis recording?
Yeah, all four of them were. Yeah, in fact, he was the.
So was he saying he faked that?
Well, he said they came up with the story.
Okay.
He said that. He mentioned that they did see the light. He says, I had an uncomfortable feeling of being stared at. He mentioned all over that. We saw the light. I felt the uncomfortableness. He said that the group reported this weird light to a ranger on duty in the area the next day, and the ranger quickly dismissed it, saying, "Hey, the light's probably happening. Apparently, there's a grand opening of a hardware store in a town not too far from there." He says that what they saw were guys operating a searchlight on the back of a pickup. But Rack says that, hey, there's no way this could have happened in any hardware store grand opening.
Car dealership lights. That
one of those. But he says there's no way they could have been doing this at 9 o'clock at night, and apparently the sound was like 75 miles away. But that after that, these guys didn't discuss it. They didn't discuss this story for the rest of this trip, and then for years after. Until apparently Jim Weiner, one of the twin brothers, he mentions he suffered a traumatic fall and began to experience seizures. He started, with the seizures, suffering these visions of humanoid beings levitating above his bed, poking him with needles. So he mentioned that obviously then Jim Weiner reached out to renowned UFO researcher Raymond Fowler. That's when they went into the under their hypnosis. But he says that
Fowler wasn't in on it, right?
No, he said it was the guys.
He's a renowned UFO.
He's renowned. Well, he did write a book in 1993 on the abductions. He called it the Allagash Abductions, and that's when the whole media blitz happened. So they went on the Joan Rivers show. Actually, that clip that I played was they also did an episode of Unsolved Mysteries. For some of the older folks out there, remember that great 90s TV series Unsolved Mysteries, where they would do these great stories. I mean, it was really creepy, these stories about ghost stories, murders, anything that was unsolved. Really good, great show from the 90s. So they even did an episode of it, Unsolved Mysteries on these guys. So Rack is
the ones on. They're doing new ones on Netflix. Did I see that right?
Yeah. New ones came out like a few days ago.
It's not on the menu.
Yeah.
Is that guy still doing it?
No, the original host died like 20 years ago.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, is he still around? His raincoat or whatever he was.
Yeah, it was a raincoat always. Yeah. But it wasn't an unsolved mystery. I think he died of like, I don't know, cancer. I can't remember.
That'd have been interesting.
Right, they did an episode on him. No, but Rex says that,
and he narrates it.
No, but right, that'd be even.
What happened to me?
What happened to me? Let's find out. No, but Rex says that they were compelled to stay together. That they thought they were gonna make millions of dollars, but they made very little from I guess apparently going around and telling their story. I'm sure the guy who wrote the book made more money than them. But he said eventually, him and the others had a falling out, and but apparently this happened after he started telling everybody that abductions didn't happen. Now the other three guys, they still maintain it happened. They mentioned that Rack is I guess he has some mental issues, and I guess they sort of distance themselves from him, and even the author, the renowned UFO guy, and the guy who put him under hypnosis. They've said the same thing, that he's a little erratic. And obviously, you gotta take both sides, right? You can look at both sides. Hey, of course they're gonna say that if what he's telling is the truth and they don't want that to come out, or he could be crazy and that's the reason he's saying it, right? But apparently, all the other guys have sort of distanced themselves from him. So, and apparently he's even been kicked out of some UFO conventions because of his behavior. So,
the denier?
Yeah, the denier. The denier, yeah. But
why would you go to them though? I'm saying, if you're gonna go there and you don't believe in it, why would you go to the convention?
I guess he like he mentioned, he wanted to make money. But he did mention that apparently this is what he says, that they were
it's like bringing a globe to a flat Earth convention.
but Rex does say that they were apparently they had taken some drugs apparently when they were up there. He said that he said he remembered Jack brought some Afghan temple ball with him to share with the rest of us. So they were definitely stoned when they went out on the lake just before that sighting. So I'm guessing that's some type of marijuana. I don't know. Afghan temple ball.
I was gonna say, what the fuck is that?
Probably some weird pot strain from the 70s. But he did say that when they went on the Joan Rivers show, she did ask him, "Hey, were y'all on drugs or drinking?" And one of the other guys said no. He said he was glad he didn't have to say it because he knew they were lying. But one of the other guys says that they didn't do any drugs when they're out there. He said that in fact they had a few beers, but in reality they weren't drunk at all. But like they mentioned, they say this guy is a mental case, and they sort of try to steer clear from him.
I like how three guys that got abducted are shaming this man and calling him mental. That guy who says he didn't get abducted? He's nuts.
Right. But Fowler, the UFO guy, he did say that he feels that Chuck, the guy who's denying it, he feels that he was the only one that didn't really have a very detailed recollection of the abduction under hypnosis. So he feels like Chuck is the type of guy who needs to be in control. So I guess he wasn't very happy when he didn't have as much control as the others in terms of remembering things. Even he feels maybe that's part of the issue he has, that hey, these other guys remember a lot more than he did, so he sort of maybe feels uncomfortable going along with the story if he needs to be in control. But if he doesn't remember everything, maybe that's the reason he's denying it now.
You always hear some people are way more susceptible to hypnosis too than others.
Yeah. You sort of hear like different. I don't know how true it is, but differing stories about intelligence playing a sort of a part in it. That if the more intelligent somebody is, actually they're more susceptible to hypnosis. But I don't know how true that is. I'm not an expert in hypnosis. But
if they're smart, they're more susceptible.
Yeah, apparently. But I don't know.
Also depends on what you mean by intelligent, right?
Yeah. It could be many things, right? But yeah, that is the Allagash Abductions, John.
I'm actually a little scared to be hypnotized. Not scared. I just wanted to make me do something like ridiculous.
like a chicken, like all those TV fucking.
I don't care about that.
It is a scary thing because you feel like maybe you might lose control, right? Like control in terms of like saying something or doing something that you might.
We made him put a bottle up his ass. And we filmed it.
Do you think you've ever been hypnotized? You just don't remember it?
I don't think so.
Has it ever been suggested to you that maybe you need to be hypnotized or something?
No. Like no, but I think I mentioned I had two college professors tell me that it's real, and that they're like adamant about that it's real. It's just not that extreme like in movies,
Yeah.
So like they're not gonna make you kill like the Prime Minister of Malaysia, like
What was that movie? I think they remade it with Denzel Washington. I forget the
Manchurian Candidate.
Yeah, you go, the Manchurian Candidate. It's not like that.
Yeah. No, it's a little more subtle.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah.
And then I heard what's Joe Rogan on a podcast say that there was a friend he had that definitely wouldn't do anything to embarrass himself. And there's a hypnotist that would come and like to the clubs regularly.
Hypnotize
and
them?
He said he made him like cum his pants.
Really?
Like in front of everybody.
Ugh.
And it's like the kind of guy that would be like super embarrassed to like even cluck like a chicken.
Oh, okay.
Like he took
himself really seriously. Yeah.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think coming in your pants is slightly more embarrassing than clucking like a chicken.
Yeah. But I think like if somebody well enough, like everybody has that friend that doesn't want to like ever be embarrassed or anything about anything. It's like that they would never do that even if you paid them.
Those are always like the people who are more like, it's fun if it's true. Those are the ones you want to hypnotize, right? It's like it's a lot more fun to make them do stuff than anybody else.
Oh, that sounds like a real rapey profession.
Maybe, yeah.
Not saying that that's what they do. It just sounds like a perverted profession.
Well, you're taking control out of people's hands, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're and for some people they feel like, especially with the type of hypnosis this guy did to them, they feel like you're manipulating their memories. A lot of critics of this type of hypnosis that you're gonna get false memories because you're manipulating what they're what you feel like they're remembering. But who knows?
Yeah. I think even like at a Spurs game, I've seen it. Have you seen it there?
Really? They hypnotize somebody during like.
They hypnotize like a bunch of people in chairs, and I'm like, it doesn't even seem like the right atmosphere to do it in.
It's really noisy. Yeah, I don't know how. I don't know how effective it is.
Yeah, they just started like doing weird, like dances and shit. I'm just like, this can't be real.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember. I guess I've missed that.
Yeah, I don't think that's a regular thing. Probably in town for the night.
Yeah. Nah, but yeah, it's still a creepy story. I think anytime it is one of those like they're out. I mean, they were out there for 2 weeks, right? So I mean, who knows what happened out there? 4 guys by themselves.
Yeah, I like. I don't know. There's weird shit like those people that have like past memories from another life. And have you ever seen they do it like with kids and stuff, where these kids like
they know shit.
Like
they know shit that they shouldn't know.
Yeah, like they have memories like this for like there's some old guy that lived like a couple hundred years ago or some shit.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Luckily, I never met a kid that did that, but I've seen like
something creepier about kids.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like a ghost kid would freak me out more than like a old
ghost adult.
Yeah.
No. I don't know. I mean, what do you think about UFO stories in general? Like, yeah, obviously, you know, I think for a lot of the people who claim they saw it, I mean, the ones who always are telling the truth, I do think they see something, right? I mean, there's a lot of shit in the sky at night that it's hard to explain.
I think most of them are not liars, but they probably didn't see anything alien related.
Yeah.
Like from another planet.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure like all the technology we see is like 25, 30 years behind what they really have.
Yeah, probably. They're not gonna say it, right?
Yeah.
Remember that one night we did see that it was, I don't know if it's a light or something. I remember this was years ago. I remember you were trying to take out your telescope.
Yeah, but we looked it up though. I remember that. Yeah. Like it was still daytime, right?
Yeah, it was like almost like early dusk. Like the light, like there was still some sun.
Oh, you know what it was? It was a planet.
That's what it was?
Yeah, like I remember I looked it up online that night, and it was a planet or something that was gonna be visible like with the naked eye that night.
Oh, okay. So I remember it was a weird light. Yeah.
Yeah, it was some space thing that was supposed to be visible, just like we happened to have a good view of it.
I think the Jimmy Carter story and I think they attributed to Venus. Like he had just seen Venus.
Okay.
Yeah, which I think happens a lot. Venus is one of those. I think during the right time you could see Venus and it's really bright.
Yeah, that could have been it. I don't remember what planet it was, but I remember like I looked it up.
Yeah.
And there was another one time that I saw, and it was right here at what they call the medical center here. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, over here on this side of town. Mm-hmm. I remember I saw a bunch of lights, and I guess like they were high enough to be like a low-flying plane. Mm-hmm. And I was like, they're really there. I don't know what the fuck they are. But then I looked at
how many lights?
About like 5 or 6.
And they're all like they're all together.
They're together.
Uh-huh.
And they were just kind of like hovering.
Okay.
And then I went online and I looked it up, and there was a bunch of reports, and they said lights, like medical center lights, and just like people talk about, but nobody had a explanation.
Yeah.
So I know I wasn't crazy because there was other people. You know, like especially today, it's like you could go online and be like, you know, who else saw this shit?
Yeah. You don't have to wait a few days to read about it in the newspaper. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have to wait for the fucking Raven to bring you the news.
It's, you know, there is a actually it wasn't that bad. I don't know if you ever ended up seeing it. There is this UFO movie on Amazon that premiered a few weeks ago, or like a month ago. It's like low budget, but actually really well made. Actually, it was pretty interesting. It was like it just happened one night where.
You're the one who told me to check it out.
Yeah.
Vast of Night.
Yeah, Vast of Night. I think. Yeah, I can't remember the name. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think it
was pretty good.
Yeah, I think it showed a close to real representation of how it would feel if, you know, you see that one night, and, you know, especially in this small town, right? Seeing something that you can't explain.
You felt pretty close to, like, almost. Actually, it kind of was in real time, right?
Yeah, it almost felt. Yeah, it's all said in one night. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
and they go to that old lady's house where they just like dismiss her as a kook.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, there's something to that, right? So people, especially like you hear older people tell these stories of, you know, back in the 50s, 60s, and they're out in the middle of nowhere and they see these, you know, these things. It's there's something about being out by yourself, and then you're encountering this thing you can't explain. It can be a little creepy.
Scary is people that live near Los Alamos describing the mushroom clouds they would see in the distance.
Yeah.
And those are real.
Yeah. And then you hear about like guys like a Bob Lazar who, you know, became famous in the late 80s when he sort of came forward and talked about Area 51. But what was great about him, he never changed his story, right? He describes it the same way he did back in 89.
Yeah, Rogan had him on too, like
a few years ago, right? Or like a year ago.
Yeah, probably last year.
Yeah.
And
he
made a good point as far as he goes. He's either the best liar ever, you know, not ever, but like one of the best liars ever, or he that really happened.
Yeah.
And Netflix did their own. Is it Netflix or Amazon did their own little documentary on it?
Yeah, Mickey Rourke was that's the narrator.
That's right. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
But
I remember stuff with him.
Yeah, I mean, you hear stories. It's hard to dismiss. I don't know. I still can't get 100% behind it being aliens, but I don't know. Some of these stories they do sort of they are creepy.
His story is interesting because it's like right on the amount of whoa, that's weird, but not like
completely.
Not like wacky, not like wacko UFO space alien abduction shit.
Yeah,
more like alien technology is what he's claimed to have seen.
Yeah.
Oh,
John, we'll see. Hopefully, I never experienced what these four guys experienced. I'm sure if it happened, it's a very traumatizing events in their lives, and you know, no wonder they sort of repressed it, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you listen to like Coast to Coast, they call in all night, right?
It's like I'm seeing one right now.
Put them on the phone.
All right, John. So pretty much out of time. Any last thoughts on this story or UFOs?
No, I mean, what's the most paranormal thing that's ever happened to you, or unsolved, unexplainable?
Paranormal to me is
cheese.
The cheese thing. Yeah, cheese just brings out all the demons and the locked away secrets in my head. Cheese is the key, kids. It's the gateway drug, right? It's cheese and then heroin. So
right. Cheese just leads to harder dairy.
Harder cheeses, right? The stinkier cheeses, more French cheeses, as they say.
Yeah.
No,
pretentious people will eat them after dessert with wine.
Yeah. You know, I guess the creepiest or weirdest thing to ever happen in my life, it sort of happened to my family. I think I've told you this story a little bit. I used to live in this. We used to live in this house. We were probably there maybe 3 months. I was about 6. Yeah, I was 6 years old. I think I just started school. I think it started with my brother hearing stuff at night, and then at one point my dad heard some stuff during the day, and then my mom in the morning one time she thought it was my dad, and she felt like somebody like blowing her ear, and she thought it was my dad. It was like super early in the morning, and she thought it was my dad messing with her, and then she turned around, it was nobody. But my brother would hear stuff in his room, and after a while he stopped sleeping in his room. And my sister slept in there one night to see if there's anything to it, and she heard stuff too. And apparently I don't remember this. Apparently I would wake up at night and cry a lot. She's like having nightmares, but I don't remember any of it. I was like 6. But yeah, I guess we had that for like several months until we just finally moved out of the house. But my dad he talked to our neighbor who I lived there for like 10 years. And he mentioned that there used to be an old couple who used to live there, and then the old man died one day, and apparently I lived in that house for decades. And then he said then they started seeing people run out the house, and he would see people not stay there for too long. In fact, one of the teenage girls, one of the family had a teenage girl, and one night they saw an ambulance come, and they were taking her away in an ambulance. Apparently she had like a panic attack or something happened to her. But yeah, people wouldn't last in that house very long. So he attributed to like, hey, maybe it's that old man. I don't know. But that's probably the closest to like unknown. Nothing we could ever figure out. But me directly, not really.
Yeah.
What about you? What's the most unknown? Have you ever seen a UFO?
Nah, I don't think so. Those lights were weird, but I mean, I'm sure there's a logical explanation.
What about your Bigfoot sighting?
I have a Bigfoot sighting?
It's
like, I don't remember that. I think I told you that time where it was weird because I think it was like 3 days apart.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know, it's maybe just coincidence, right? Like after my grandma had died, and there was I don't really believe in that stuff, but it was just a weird thing because I remember there was a chair in the living room, and I remember my cousin goes stopped, and she goes, oh, that's weird, it seems like something just like it felt like something like walked through me, like kind of like gave her chills.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, whatever, that's weird. And then I remember like 3 days later, my sister's friend was sitting in the same chair, and she said the exact same thing.
Oh, really? Okay.
And they don't even know each other.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's weird. But I was like, huh.
That was a chair your grandma would sit in?
Yeah, she would sit and play solitaire in that chair, while she was until she couldn't do it anymore.
She said, get the fuck off my chair, right? Don't play some solitaire.
Yeah. But it's just weird because it's like word for word, like describing the same thing. And I was like, what the fuck does that feel like?
Yeah. Do y'all still have that chair?
I don't know. I don't remember. I remember where it was the one that was on an old computer there.
Oh, okay.
But that's the only thing she would do is sit there and play solitaire. She didn't know how to do anything else on the computer.
Oh. Yeah. That's what most old people do, right? They play solitaire. It's a fun game, actually. You're really, really, really bored. You have nothing else to do. It's a very fun thing to do.
I guess.
It's funny. There's
that little gratification of the cards going.
Yeah, there's like no skill involved behind it too. That's what I love about it. Anybody can play it. All right, John. That was
the money I've lost playing solitaire.
All right, John. So that's it for UFO talk. We'll do another one. Actually, these are fun. I like reading about UFOs. So actually, it's one of those things people dismiss, but even if it isn't real, the stories are pretty interesting. Just to think about if it's real. All right, folks. That's it for another episode of Malarkey Hour. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.